Welcome, Big Ten fans. This is Big Ten Ted Live. Welcome, everybody, to another week and another edition of Big Ten Ted Live. We have made it to the month of May, which means we are less than 4 months away from the beginning of the college football season, from the beginning of the Big Ten football season, which will kick off August 30th when Nebraska travels to Minneapolis to take on the Golden Gophers of Minnesota. Yes, we are just chipping away at that calendar. We are just chipping away at that timeline until football will finally be here. So thanks for coming in to the first Big Ten Ted Live of the month of May. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We've got a big 2-topic show, and really for the first time in a while, it is not going to be realignment related. It's not going to be television related because, man, this is all about between the lines. This is all about 11 on 11. This is all about the game we love, college football. Because today we are going to talk about my top 14 Big Ten power rankings. 1 through 14. I'm not going to consider schedule. I'm throwing schedule out the window. Post-spring Big Ten power rankings. This one was a little tough. I'll admit, this one was a little tough, so I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I'm sure you're going to have some thoughts on it. So how do you get involved? Here, you can leave a chat, you can leave a super chat, or call in 715-600-2150, and we can take this show in a multitude of directions after these topics have been talked about, even kind of in between segments as well. So we're going to talk about my post-spring power rankings. There's been a lot of movement. There's been some new faces and new places in the Big Ten Conference. Where do they stand right now? I know we're going to have a little bit more movement with this spring transfer portal, but I think I got a pretty good gauge on where these teams are at. So we're going to talk about that. Post-spring Big Ten power rankings, 1 through 14. Where does your team fit in that? And then we're going to talk about this portal that keeps on spinning around and around and around and around. And just when you think you've come to the last turn and you're about to get off the merry-go-round, it keeps on going around and around and around again. So we're going to talk about the transfer portal here tonight. Of course, April 30th was the final day to declare to get into the transfer portal. Now players going to have a little bit of time to commit to a school and eventually decide which school they will transfer to, the kids that are in the transfer portal. There's a lot to talk about. Some big news, obviously, this last week. Michigan State, Payton Thorne and Keon Coleman. We'll talk about those guys. And there were many other Big Ten guys going into the transfer portal that I did not cover in the 2 videos I did in the beginning of the week. I covered Getting to the Thompson here in just a minute. Payton Thorne and Keon Coleman leaving Michigan State, and Casey Thompson leaving Nebraska. But I got a lot more. There's a lot more. And I'll kind of cover some guys that are coming in that I think are going to be big-time transfers as well. So get involved tonight. Let's have a good discussion. It's all about our beloved B1G. If you're a fan of the B1G, this right here is the place to be. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications of when we upload a video, when I'm going live for shows like this. And before I get in to topic numero uno, which is going to be my post-spring Big Ten power rankings, before I get into that, I got one announcement to make. We will be going live, a special bonus live stream this Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central. Caught up on a lot of work stuff, kind of got the house to myself, so why not have a bonus live stream? I might talk some college football playoff stuff. We got the dates for the next 2 years. We'll kind of talk about that. But that will be on Saturday. More details to come in just a moment. So tune in for that one. You're tuned in for this one. Thanks for coming along for the ride here tonight. It has been a fun offseason so far. I can say there's been plenty of action. The one thing from a content creator's perspective, like myself, when you cover college football, now there's a lot more going on than there used to be, right? The season would end, you'd get into recruiting, and, National Signing Day in February, and you'd have a lot of dead time. Now the transfer portal allows excitement at the end of the season, going into the spring kind of as well, and it allows teams to improve, and it allows teams to rise up these power rankings. That's what I want to talk about right now. Post-spring Big Ten power rankings. Before I get to the rankings, I could just want to set some parameters of how I judge this. I'm throwing out schedule because that's not what this is about. This is ranking teams based on their talent that they have brought in, talent that they are bringing back. Because a lot of times we say, well, Wisconsin's going to go 9-3, or Wisconsin's going to go 8-4, or Minnesota's got a tough schedule, they're going to go 6-6. Okay, but if you throw the schedules out, or if you swap schedules, those two teams, for example, might swap records. So this is power rankings based on talent. Schedules is a totally different game. So let's dive right into it. Going to pull up the old full page graphic. This is where I see the Big Ten teams ranked as of right now. And I'm going to explain it. And right off the top, I'm sure some people got some questions. The two-time defending Big Ten champions are number 2. Why do I feel that Ohio State is number 1? I believe Ohio State just has a bunch of talent across the board. Not saying that Michigan doesn't have talent, but Ohio State has it everywhere, man. Like, they have the best wide receiver room in the country. They have an ultra-talented backfield. Like, they are an extremely talented team right now. And then you look at the quarterbacks. These quarterbacks, Kyle McCord now coming in for Ohio State, and, of course, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. These were pretty comparable 5-star guys coming out of high school. Okay? And Kyle McCord, here's the beauty of it. Oh, Kyle McCord has a relationship with Marvin Harrison Jr. A lot of things where what we're getting into right now is new quarterbacks kind of developing with new receivers, that kind of thing. They played in high school. Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyle McCord, that backfield with Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams kind of as well. You look at, like I mentioned, Marvin Harrison Jr. You look at Emeka Ibuka. You look at Julian Fleming. I look at Carnell Tate as a freshman that could really burst onto the scene as well. I just look at the talent at Ohio State, and I just see it everywhere, man. I just see it everywhere. I think the one thing that was holding the Buckeyes back a little bit was their health, was injuries. Obviously, it could happen again, but that's the one thing that really held them back last season. I look at the defensive side of the ball for Ohio State. JT Tuimoloau, that great game against Penn State. He's going to be maybe one of the best defensive linemen in the country. I look at Michael Hall. I look at Jack Sawyer up front. I look at Tommy Eichenberg. I look at Steele Chambers. I look at Denzel Burke. There is a lot of talent on that defense. And I think if you look at guys from an individual perspective, I believe this Ohio State team could be more talented on defense than Michigan. And Michigan's got good talent. They got good talent. Junior Colson, Ernest Hausman, was that Josiah Stewart, the transfer from Coastal Carolina. Like, they've got good talent in the backfield. Mike Sanders still comes back once again. Like, you match Ohio State and Michigan up on a football field, is what it's going to be Ann Arbor this year? Yeah, Michigan might win. Maybe Michigan probably wins. But as of right now in the month of May, Ohio State just has it all in so many different positions, man. Maybe the first-year quarterback maybe holds them back a little bit, but right now I got Ohio State just slightly above Michigan and Penn State. Like, look at those teams above them. Look at Ohio State and look at Michigan. Drew Allar at Penn State could be more talented than the two guys above him. I really believe that much in Drew Allar right now at Penn State. Like, he is going to... I think Penn State is really going to light it up this year. I really believe that for Penn State. Like, you look at Theo Johnson at tight end, Dante Cephas and Keandre Lambert-Smith at wide receiver. I'm sure other guys are going to step up. You look at defense. I look at Abdul Carter and Kalen King, young guys last season that are going to expect it to be leaders. I look at Penn State, and then, of course, I didn't even mention the backfield yet. I look at Singleton, and I look at Allen. Like, they are going to be so darn good. This is going to be a great Penn State team, but they're just a notch behind Ohio State. They're just a notch behind Michigan as of right now. And now this is where things get fun, folks. This is where things get real fun because I knew Ohio State, I knew Michigan, I knew Penn State were the top teams right now in the Big Ten, right? If you're going 1 through 14. But then this is where almost anything could happen. You look at number 4, you look at number 5, number 6, all of these teams. There's so much. When I looked at number 4 through like number 9, even number 10, I could see a lot of these teams. I could see 9, 8, 9, 10 moving up to number 4, 5, and 6. All these teams being jumbled in a lot of different areas. So let's now break it down. I put Wisconsin at number 4 because I just couldn't for the life of me as a West Division guy in West Division territory, I just couldn't put 4 East Division teams right at the top. I just couldn't do that. So I put Wisconsin. When I look at the West Division, I believe Wisconsin is the most talented team. I know their spring game wasn't great, folks. Look, I know that did not look good at all. Okay? But this is Tanner Mordecai, should be into rhythm, should look good in this Phil Longo offense once it gets to September. Braylon Allen has just had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. Pair him with Ches Malusi, that could be a really good backfield at Wisconsin. All the receivers they brought in, they have improved their offensive line. Like, this should be a really, really good Wisconsin football team. Defense, I like what they have at linebacker. They're having some portal recruiting battles for some of these kids to improve their defense. I trust Luke Fickell. I trust this scheme that they're bringing in, that it is going to improve over time. I'm not sure how it's going to be right away. That Jim Leonard loss is a big-time loss, folks. But when I look at this across the board in the West Division, I just think Wisconsin is ultra-talented here right now. Let's move on to the Maryland Terrapins. Okay, Maryland lost a lot of talent in their wide receiver room, but they replaced it. Went out in the transfer portal, got Caden Prather from West Virginia. They got Tyrese Chambers, who looked really good in the spring game. I believe he transferred in from FIU. You look at Corey Dyches at tight end. They've got a deep running back room with Roman Hemby, Antoine Littleton, Ramon Brown, and, of course, Taulia Tagovailoa, one of the most experienced, maybe one of the best quarterbacks in the entire Big Ten Conference right now. Like, this is a point in time for Maryland where they could. I got a video. I got this whole spreadsheet with video ideas, and one of my video ideas possibly for this offseason is this the year Maryland pulls an upset over a Michigan, over an Ohio State, over a Penn State? I think right now the answer is no. Maybe give me a few weeks, maybe give me a few months, and I might change my mind seeing what happens up here, finishing up in the transfer portal. But I really like Maryland. Maryland has a really, really good football team this season. Like, the job that Mike Locksley has done has been outstanding, and he just got rewarded with a new contract extension. Well deserved, because, man, Mike Locksley, if I was on the coaching market this past year, I would have been looking at Mike Locksley. Okay? I would have been looking at him to possibly fill my head coaching vacancy. I think he's that good of a head football coach. What he's done at a place like Maryland in a conference like the Big Ten should be impressive, and a lot of people should be impressed by that. Okay, so I got Maryland slightly ahead of Iowa. Maryland's offense is obviously a lot better than Iowa's offense. right now is the key word there. Iowa's defense, slightly better than Maryland's defense, even though I think Maryland's going to have a solid defense this year. Their top 3 returning tacklers returned for the Terps. You look at those safeties, Bo Braid and Dante Trader. What does it say about your team when your top 2 tacklers are safety? It probably means your front 7 ain't that great, but you also look at Jayshawn Barham, I should say. He is a true freshman last year and he was in the top 3 in the tackles, top 150 player in the country in high school when he came out. He's a very talented kid. I see this Maryland as a solid defense. Maryland is just a tick above Iowa. I wasn't able to see the Iowa spring game. It was not on television. I look at Cade McNamara. Should be good. I look at Caleb Johnson in the backfield. Should be good. And Iowa currently is going after Caleb Brown in the transfer portal. Highly recruited guy, high 4-star guy that went to Ohio State, crowded wide receiver room, and now he's transferring out. He is in probably Iowa City as we speak. He was there earlier today, and that would be a huge get for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I just don't know. I just don't know about Iowa's offense. They still got bad luck Brian Ferentz as their coordinator, and that scares me for Iowa. What's going to happen when Cade McNamara doesn't have the best offensive line in the country like he did at Michigan? What's going to happen when Cade McNamara has to run around? That's what I'm in fear of right now, because that offensive line is going to either make or break Iowa. That's why I put Maryland slightly above Iowa. Minnesota and Illinois, these are 2 teams that are so razor close. We're going to have some really good games in the Big Ten West this year, folks. It's going to be really good in the Big Ten West this year. Why did I put Minnesota slightly above Illinois? All right. Minnesota's lost a lot on their defense from the transfer portal. Flip Dixon, Braylon Oliver, Trill Carter. But when I look at this battle, when I look at Minnesota, I think their defense might rebound pretty well, especially if they can make some transfer portal moves here as this transfer portal season goes along. I believe Minnesota offensively is a little bit better than Illinois. I think Ethan Kaliakmanis and Luke Altmaier are pretty comparable at the quarterback position. I just think Minnesota has more weapons. I think Minnesota's better and deeper in the running back room. Zach Evans. I look at Sean Tyler. I look at Bryce Williams. You'd compare that to guys like Josh McCray and Reggie Love at Illinois. So when I keep on kind of breaking these 2 down, Illinois is better in the front 7. Illinois' got some nasty boys in the front 7, let me tell you that much, with Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph on that defensive line, Tariq Barnes, Gabe Jacobs. There's a lot of guys that are going to be really good in that front 7. But I just think Minnesota is better offensively. Give Ethan Kaliakmanis a full year, or a full offseason, I should say, in the spring, the whole summer conditioning, all that stuff. Give all that stuff, and you look at Brevin Spanford at tight end, going to be one of the best tight ends in the Big Ten. Chris Altman-Bell coming back for a 6th year. Lamecki Brockington is going to take a big step up this year. You look at those transfers, Corey Crooms and Elijah Spencer. The Elijah Spencer from Kaliakmanis combination was straight fire in the spring game. This offense is going to be a very good offense. Will it be the best offense in Minnesota since 2019? It very well could be, and that defense is going to get better. Nubin and Wally in the secondary look good. The former Anoka Tornado, Cody Lindenberg, one of the top tacklers on that defense at linebacker. This is going to be, and Joe Rossi. I trust Joe Rossi like I don't trust Brian Ferentz. I think Rossi's going to end up putting out a very good defense in Minnesota. Will it be great? Will it be excellent? Maybe not. But I believe Minnesota just a teeny bit above Illinois. Nebraska. Nebraska's had talent the past few years, but they've had terrible coaching. Now you bring in Matt Rule, Tony White, Marcus Satterfield. Now you bring in a coaching staff that maybe knows what they're doing, and especially Matt Rule, a developmental head coach that can develop these guys, maybe these younger guys, and add some of these older guys as the season goes along. The picture is becoming very clear for Nebraska. This is a team that wants to beef up their offensive line. This is a team, this is as a quarterback in Jeff Sims that's not an outstanding quarterback by any means. Covered that earlier in the week of the channel. But he's going to fit into a system that wants to run the ball first, wants to be physical, wants to utilize maybe their best tight end combination in the Big Ten with Eric Gilbert and Thomas Fidone. Iowa might have something to say about that as well. And then you look at the receivers on the outside that are going to be good in one-on-one matchups once they run the football better. And that defense looks pretty solid as well. But it all depends on the coaching. It all depends on the development of this football team at Nebraska. This is a Nebraska team that could maybe win 7 games, maybe could win 8 games. They could also win 4 games or 5 games. Okay, we just don't know how they're going to respond week to week in this Matt Rule era, this Matt Rule coaching scheme, so to speak. So I got Nebraska right there. Michigan State, it's been a tough week to be a Sparty fan. Okay, there's a lot of unknowns here for Michigan State. All right? People in Sparty land seem to be excited about Noah Kim at quarterback. Obviously, Keaton Hauser appears to be the future 4-star guy that was recruited, but all indications say maybe that Noah Kim is going to be the guy in East Lansing. But when I look at this right here and right now as I'm talking, they aren't really in the running for a lot of talented wide receivers in the transfer portal right now that are going to be able to step up and play at a level that Keon Coleman could have played at. That's a bigger loss than Payton Thorne, in my opinion, even though I thought Payton Thorne was probably the best quarterback on this roster. The defense looks solid for Michigan State. Maybe this is the year where the defense finally turns the corner for Mel Tucker, right? I look at Jacoby Windman back there. They've brought in some transfers. Chris Bogle out of Florida was pretty good. Like, they have some solid players on Michigan State, and I think this could maybe be the year where maybe their defense is better than their offense. They're going to maybe have to win some games ugly, but right now, I just don't know if Noah Kim's going to be that guy. Jalen Berger kind of came out at the end of last season. I just don't know if him and UConn transfer Nathan Carter are going to be better. How's the offensive line going to be? There's a lot of unknowns. And when I look at the schedule, right, they got to go to Iowa. They got to play Nebraska. They got to go to Minnesota in their crossovers. And they have the East Division with a Maryland team, an improved Indiana team. I just don't know for Michigan State, even though I'm not supposed to judge this on the schedule. But I'm looking at the talent on this roster, and it's hard for me to imagine them higher than Illinois, Minnesota, Iowa. So I got them at 10. I got Purdue slightly above Indiana. I'm going to talk about Indiana later in this show. Folks, if I could go back in time, I might re-record that who's going to be my surprise in the Big Ten Conference, because the more time that goes by and the more research I do on Indiana football this season, they could be that surprise team. Not saying that they're going to come out and go 8-4 or 9-3 or whatever, but they could be that surprise team. They've been loading up, especially on offense right there. But I've got Purdue slightly above them. This is a team, obviously, that went to the Big Ten championship last year as Big Ten West champions. They're bringing back some of their roster. And I thought they've done a pretty good job. Hudson Card is a capable quarterback. You give him full support. If coaches, not like they did at Texas, that was kind of wishy-washy what they were doing with him at Texas. But you give him full support, and you let Hudson Card go and be the guy. And they've got receivers coming back: the Brock Thompsons, the T.J. Sheffields, the Tyrone Tracys, the Mershawn Rices. And they got a guy coming in the transfer portal from Marshall, which I'll talk about during my transfer portal segment. They got guys coming in there that this could be a Purdue team that could maybe jump up on a team this week. But I've got Purdue slightly above Indiana, and then Rutgers and Northwestern. Northwestern just had such a down year this past year. Rutgers returns Kyle Mononga at running back. I like Aaron Lewis on the defensive line. Both these teams are pretty low, but Northwestern is doing some things in the transfer portal. Once again, we're going to talk about that during our portal segment later on in the program, but that's where I have my power rankings as of right now here in the Big Ten Conference. This is a deep league this year, ladies and gentlemen. This is an extremely deep conference. Okay? Like, I look at the Indianas, I look at the Northwesterns, and maybe they were bad football teams last year. I believe like those two at the bottom are going to be improved football teams this season, but at the top as well, the Big Ten East, it's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a fun year, ladies and gentlemen. There is absolutely no question about that. I am very much looking forward to everything going on in the Big Ten Conference here this season. Let's get to some of your comments tonight. The Buckshot Kid is checking in here to the program as well. We've got people checking in. Hello, and thank you for being here on Big Ten Ted live here tonight. It is a beautiful evening just outside this window in the Twin Cities. So very thankful for everybody for being on board here tonight. Thank you, Mike, for the support and the Super Chat. Great way to support the channel as well. All right, let's see what we got here in some of the comments. Jay Daly, does Fitz start to feel the heat this year at Northwestern? Yes, he will. This is going to be a very interesting year. There are exciting things happening at Northwestern, like the building of a new stadium. Okay, so this is going to be they got to beat FCS teams. They got to beat the teams they should beat. This is going to be an interesting year for Northwestern. Look at the flag behind me. Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska. That's a tough West Division for them right now. Can they turn it around? In my transfer portal segment, I am going to talk about the Northwestern Wildcats because they have done some things in the portal to improve their team, and they needed to go hard into the portal. So we'll see. Pat Fitzgerald is definitely going to be feeling the heat this season. Definitely feeling the heat this season. Jared Jones agrees that Fitzgerald should be on the hot seat. I don't know if Pat Fitzgerald has worked his way into like a Kirk Ferentz situation where he can just retire whenever. I don't know if that's where he's at right now, but we're going to find out maybe at the end of this season. We're going to find out. So that should be very interesting. Gerald McKinley kind of chiming in on the Pat Fitzgerald situation. It's possible for Fitz to get heat. He's been regressing, but almost feels untouchable at this point. Sometimes you just need to go in a different direction. Your program maybe becomes a little bit stagnant. Is that happening right now with Northwestern? Not sure. I think this year is going to be a very telling year to see what the future of Northwestern football is. Very, very telling year. Jay Daly, they're trying to raise money for a new stadium. Gets tougher if people aren't excited about the direction of the Wildcats. So, yeah, the stadium project is kind of dependent on what happens inside the old Ryan Field. Talking about PJ Fleck, Jay Daly making his comments known. I live here in the Twin Cities, somewhere around here, and most of the locals thinks he's a putz. The opinion about Fleck is very interesting, and I'm sure the Twin Cities media has a little bit of influence on that as well. They're not the biggest fans, I should say, of PJ Fleck around here. But for PJ to go back-to-back 8-4 seasons, I think is telling at Minnesota. Okay, and then 9 wins with the bowl game this past year. But for him to do that in back-to-back seasons, even though those last 2 seasons, there are games that he lost that he definitely should have won. What he's doing here at Minnesota, raising the bar, is very, very good. And Jared Jones chiming in as well. I feel like this is the best 3-year stretch in Minnesota history. Maybe, they won some national championships back in the 1960s. But, man, this is a pretty good stretch for Minnesota, right? You won 11 games in 2019, and then you kind of took a little bit of a step down. But in 2021 and 2022, you got 8-win seasons. This is, the Minnesota and PJ Fleck. The thing I think a lot of people are worried about with Minnesota, has he reached his ceiling? Has PJ Fleck, he hit it so early, and now is 7 or 8 wins kind of where he's going to be floating around. Jay Daly, more on this. Glenn Mason had a pretty good run, right? They were a top 25 team with the likes of, and Gerald McKinley checking in with just about what I was about to say. It might be, but I enjoyed the Marion Barber and Lawrence Maroney years. When we talk about running back tandems in the Big Ten, and I, at least in my memory, right, 22-ish years following Big Ten football, the first one that really pops into my mind and my memory from what I've seen on TV is Marion Barber and Lawrence Maroney. That was a dynamite combination in the backfield. Maybe didn't have a ton around him, or around them, I should say, but still, that was a really good backfield at Minnesota. That was in the top 25 a lot. We've got more comments coming in. I still think Iowa has the best defense and special teams in the Big Ten. I would mostly agree with this. Torrey Taylor coming back, pinning teams around, inside the 10-yard line once again. Defense, I think they are going to be challenged this year by Illinois. I think Ohio State and Michigan are going to be thrown in there as well as really good defenses. But Iowa's going to be another great defense. Their defensive line and their secondary are really, really good this season. All right, checking in here on some more comments. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of the program here tonight. Your interaction makes this all kinds of fun. Sunshine Design saying Northwestern will upset. Watch for it. You know, we were talking about Northwestern here early, a couple of minutes ago, and here's what I think about Northwestern. Here's what I feel about the Cats. That first game is going to be very telling for both Northwestern and for Rutgers in week 1. We're going to find out, okay, has Northwestern turned the corner? Or is maybe Rutgers turning the corner? I read an article. Greg Schiano wants to explore the portal to kind of fill some holes. So we'll see if he can fill some of those holes on this team as well. So that's going to be interesting to see. Northwestern and Rutgers. It might seem like not the greatest matchup right out of the gate, but if one of these teams wants to surprise, and maybe if one of these teams want to climb their way and scratch their way to a bowl game, they're going to need to win that game. More stuff. I see some chatter about Caleb Brown, Ohio State wide receiver that was in Iowa City today. We're going to talk about that during our second segment, during our transfer portal segment. So stay tuned for that here as the show progresses. More comments coming in. Very much appreciate everybody for being a part here of the show this evening. Dave Valensky's got an opinion on PJ Fleck. All PJ has to do is not lose stupid games. Purdue, Illinois, and start beating Iowa. PJ Fleck's got a Hawkeye problem. I think we all know that. It helps when Iowa's got the defense that they do. It's tough to beat Iowa. Iowa never beats themselves. Very fundamentally sound defensive football team. If their offense can pick up the pace, I think they're going to be just fine. But yeah, that Purdue game, I believe that was the game where Muhammad Ibrahim was injured, and you could really tell when Mo wasn't in the lineup last year for Minnesota. It really brought them down a lot. I think it was Illinois. Was that Illinois 2 years ago? Maybe. I think it was Illinois 2 years ago. That's what I want to say. But I remember the game you're referencing where did they get shut out, or maybe they only scored once? I can't remember at all. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of the show here tonight. It is Big Ten Ted Live. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of the chat tonight. If you want to get involved, chat, super chat, or call in 715-600-2150. We talked about the power rankings of the Big Ten Conference post-spring in our first segment of the show. If you're just coming aboard tonight, here are my Big Ten power rankings. Like about Ohio State slightly above Michigan, the Ohio State talent It's really, really good right now. I'm trying to not judge based on scheduling, but this is kind of where I find teams sitting in terms of power rankings in the Big Ten Conference if you're just joining us here this evening. Later on during the show, as this show progresses, we are going to be talking transfer. It is all about transfers right now. We are in the heart. This is the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. This right here is where the Big Ten West was won last season. This right here is where Charlie Jones was picked up by Purdue, and he possibly pushed Purdue over the edge to win a Big Ten West championship and make it in to the Big Ten championship. So let's kind of wrap up here on some comments. I know some people not a fan of Ohio State #1. I said it earlier in the program. When I look at the talent of this rosters, position by position by position, the Ohio State talent on their roster when they are completely healthy right now, and it is not by much. Like you put now, I'm not talking about schedules. When you look at the talent all across this team, Ohio State maybe by a smidgen #1. I know Michigan back-to-back Big Ten champions. Right now, if I'm picking it, in a game situation, Michigan probably gets it done for the third straight year. But as we sit here in May right now, that Ohio State team is absolutely loaded. When you put a power rankings list together, 1 through 14, you're going to have some disagreement. But that's what this is all about. All right, let's dive into some more comments here. Mike checking in once again. Thanks, Mike, for being a part of the show here this evening. More comments as well. All good stuff here right now. Erica checking in. Wisconsin above Iowa? No way. That's right here. And that's the right now. I know the Badger spring game did not look very good. But as we continue on, Wisconsin, I have more faith in Wisconsin offensively than I do Iowa. And I know Iowa has a better defense than Wisconsin. A lot of these things are gut feelings. A lot of these Wisconsin and Iowa, I look at Minnesota and Illinois. I talked about that one as well. These are razor thin. I'm going to bring up the full page once again here. Wisconsin, Maryland, Iowa. Razor thin, ladies and gentlemen. Razor thin. Like if Iowa goes out, Cade McNamara looks good. Their offensive line's improved. They're able to establish a running game. Maybe they get Caleb Brown from Ohio State. Then Iowa might slide up a little bit. It's just I don't know about the Iowa offensive line here right now, and I don't know a lot of different things right now. I just don't know. I feel like Wisconsin eventually is going to get it together. Their talent tells me, their offensive system with Phil Longo tells me that they should get it together right here and right now. And remember, in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, when these teams kind of get their transfers together and everything. Like if Caleb Brown's on Iowa right now, I might move Iowa up a slot or two or something. Wisconsin and Iowa right now, razor thin. And I didn't feel that way before the Wisconsin spring game. I will say that. I thought maybe there was a slightly bigger gap, but that gap is closing right now. That gap continues to close. It's just when I look at the Iowa Hawkeyes right now, it's hard for me. It's really hard for me, and maybe as we see more examples through September, October, etc., it's hard for me to look past Brian Ferentz. It really is. This offense has continued to digress since he's been the offensive coordinator at Iowa. Now, before last year, of course, there were some good seasons going back 2019, 2018, things like that, but I'm just having a tough time getting past that a little bit because I've seen kind of what he can put out there as an offensive product right now. All right. Account 22 saying Michigan is the clear number one. I just think Ohio State maybe just a little bit of a smidge more talent across the board, but the way Michigan plays football against Ohio State, that's ended up pretty well for them the last few years. Obviously, Michigan, it's panned out pretty darn well. Erica asking, how is Ohio State looking on the defensive side of the football? When I look at Ohio State, I see a ton of really talented kids. If you remember, JT Tuimoloau had a fantastic game against Penn State. He could be one of the best defensive linemen in the conference. I look at Jack Sawyer and Mike Hall up on that defensive line that are very good. I look at Eichenberg, once again, Tommy Eichenberg coming back. Steel Chambers, once again, coming back. I see a lot of good individual talent. And if Jim Knowles can bring it all together, this Ohio State defense could be something. That's the big if right now. Can they bring it all together? Michigan in the past has brought it all together. I just believe that Ohio State, especially that Ohio State defensive line, looks like some big-time talent up front there for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and that offense looks fantastic. Fantastic yet again. Let's see. More. There were 3 interceptions. There were. It did not look good. It got better as time went on. Hey, it's Wisconsin football. It got better when they started to run the ball with Braylon Allen. What a concept, right? Madison, Wisconsin, running the ball equals success. I think one thing a lot of people have thought of is Phil Longo comes in. They're going to throw it around a lot. They're going to find an offense that works for them. I believe this is going to be an offense that's going to run the ball more than those North Carolina offenses have run it the past few seasons. So I think they're going to rely on this running game a little bit more, and that'll hopefully open things up for Tanner Mordecai down the road. You watch film on Tanner Mordecai, he should be a very good Big Ten quarterback. This should be a good Wisconsin team. Smoking some good stuff over here. Having Maryland 5th. What are you smoking? I like Maryland this year. I like Maryland. And, I watched their spring game. This is an offense that I think can put it all together. Roman Hemby comes back in the back. They bring their entire running back room back. They bring an experienced quarterback back. They filled in their holes at wide receiver. They bring back their leading wide receiver, I believe, in Jashawn Jones. Corey Dyches was one of the best tight ends in the Big Ten. They bring back, their top 3 tacklers on defense. I know they lose Deontay Banks, Ja'Corian Bennett, right, that was a 4th-round pick and a 4th-round draft pick, respectively. But I really believe in Maryland right now. And this is, like I said, this is razor thin between Maryland and Iowa. I like Maryland's offense better than I like Iowa. Of course, I like Iowa's defense a lot better than I like Maryland's right now. But man, these things are razor thin, folks, and that's what makes this so fun. That's what makes this so fun right now. That's what makes this so fun. Wisconsin might take a little bit of a step back on defense. We're used to seeing Wisconsin 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th in the Big Ten. That's going to come down this year. But in order for Wisconsin to do what they want to do, their offense needs to take steps forward. And I believe this offense will take big steps forward. Okay? This will take huge, big steps forward. How much? That remains to be seen, because I just don't know if the defense is going to be what it's going to be. Big Ten forever. Preach it, Jared Jones. Preach it until you got no more voice. Because that's what we do on this channel. We don't talk SEC. We don't talk ACC. We sure as heck don't talk Pac-12. Sorry, had to. We don't talk Big 12. This is all Big 10 all the time, every single day. This offseason, we're doing videos Tuesdays. We're doing videos Thursdays and Fridays. We're doing shorts over the weekend. It's live streams on Wednesdays. You know how it is. Big 10 talk all the time, all year long. So that's where I feel right now. One last look at the power rankings. One final look at the power rankings. Here's how I kind of view this. Here's where let's talk about tiers. All right, let's talk about tiers. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, I believe, are in the class by their own right now. Okay? They're in a class at the top. My next tier would probably be Wisconsin, Maryland, and Iowa. I think they're in a separate tier than Minnesota and Illinois. You could say Minnesota, Illinois, Nebraska, maybe Michigan State in that next tier, and then you go with the last tier. That's just right off the top of my head as I kind of look at this right now. Iowa very easily could be fourth. If they have a serviceable offense this season, maybe bringing a few transfer portal guys in the perimeter, Iowa could very well see work up to number 4. Minnesota's kind of in a position. Minnesota's, the Illinois, all that stuff. All that stuff with Minnesota and Illinois. Like, Minnesota has an offense that could be very good this season. Could be very good. But man, I just, like, even look at number 4 through, let's call it 10. Man, I won't go so far as 11. 4 through 10. Maybe we're not seeing things at Michigan State. Maybe Noah Kim comes in and he looks pretty darn good. You know, and maybe they get the running game going. Maybe their defense is improved like I think it will be. But Nebraska, well, maybe not. Maybe not Nebraska and Michigan State. Maybe let's cut it off at 8. 8 through 4 could be in any order at the end of the season. 8 through 4. I firmly believe that. I think Illinois could be a very good team. Minnesota could be another really good team. Oh, man, it's going to be fun. It is going to be fun in the Big 10 West this season. I can't freaking wait. I can't freaking wait for Big 10 West football. Once again, reference the flag. When I look at Illinois, I think they're taking a tiny, not much, but a tiny step up at quarterback. The big question for me is running back and offensive line. I believe they've got good wide receivers on the perimeter. Their front 7 is as good as any in the conference right now. With Johnny Newton and Keith Randolph might be as good as it gets up the middle. They might be as good as it gets up the middle on the defensive line. I look at Tariq Barnes. I look at Gabe Jacobs. Like, they have a good defensive line. They're going to have to replace a lot of good NFL talent in that secondary. But I believe Illinois could be in the mix as we continue on. Yeah, I went back and forth about Michigan State. I went back and forth at number 10. Because I think this year will be the best defense of the Mel Tucker era. I believe that. Jacoby Windman is back. Chris Bogle on the defensive line. There's other guys in that defense at linebacker. They're gonna need to bring in some guys in the secondary. But their front 7 looks serviceable, looks pretty good. Maybe it could be middle of the road defense in the Big 10 this year. But their offense could really struggle. Their offense could really struggle, man. Like, that is not. It's hard. Maybe I'm not seeing things, but I look around at this Michigan State offense, and it's hard for me to imagine them being that successful against a lot of. Like, they got to play Minnesota. They got to play Iowa. They got to play some of the better, they got to play historically maybe some of the better defense. I know Minnesota's going to take a little bit maybe of a step down, but Iowa's going to be, of course, we mentioned that time after time. The Hawks are going to be right up there once again. It's going to be tough for Michigan State. They got to play Washington in the non-conference too. Michael Penix is probably like a dark horse Heisman candidate out west over there in Seattle. It's not going to be easy, man. It is going to be tough for Michigan State this year. Going to be tough for Michigan State. Gerald McKinley chiming in, agree on Tier 1, which I said was Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. Who would win in a tiebreaker? I did a video months ago that you could have 3 and this is not, you could easily have 3 11-1 teams in the Big Ten East. I forgot how I think I had Penn State would have to beat Michigan, and I think Michigan beats Ohio State and Penn State beats Ohio State. I think that's how I had it in. But you could have 3 easily. I don't think it would be a surprise to have 3 11-1 teams in the Big Ten Conference. They all beat each other. Who knows where the tiebreaker goes? I'd have to look that one up. But it's going to be fun. You could possibly have that scenario where we got to figure something out between Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Jared Jones thinks Michigan State is in trouble. If you're trotting Trey Mosley out as your number 1 wide receiver, I don't know. I thought with Thorne and Coleman, I thought this could be a fine team that gets back to a bowl game. Maybe they're starting to take jumps up, right? They've had the 4th best recruiting class in the Big Ten the last 2 seasons, top 25 in the country. Maybe they're taking steps forward, but man, this is just a step in the wrong direction for Mel Tucker and Michigan State. Gerald McKinley again. Are they the worst in the East to anyone else? Here's what I will say about this, and I'm going to get to this in my transfer portal segment in the second segment of the program. I think they're better than Rutgers. I'll say that. We'll see what happens with their transfer acquisitions. I think Michigan State is still a better football team than Rutgers. I'm not going to say by how much because I don't think it's a wide margin. I believe MSU is still better than the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Indiana, different story. They've done a lot, the Hoosiers have, on offense to really improve themselves. Indiana could be a team that could jump up and surprise a lot of people. Erica chiming in on the whole Michigan State deal. 1 good year. And now everybody thinks they're so good. Well, maybe not anymore with the loss of Keon Coleman and Payton Thorne. We have seasons like they did almost every other year. Iowa is a mark of consistency. I'll give your Hawks that. I mean, like the Wisconsin is kind of a team like that as well, but Iowa, what did they go this year? It was a 7-5 in the regular season, won the bowl game against Kentucky, 8-5. Like there were points during this Iowa season where a lot of people, I mean, they were like their offense was, you know, kind of the butt of jokes in a lot of times, right? A lot of people nationally were kind of poking fun at Iowa a little bit, and a lot of people, and for having a down year, being 7-5, winning a bowl game, going to 8-5, you're doing just fine. If that's a down year, if that's a year that you're maybe not too proud of, and maybe a year where you get poke fun of a little bit, and you go 8-5, you're fine. You're fine. Dave Valinsky chiming in. Do you think that having USC and UCLA in the Big Ten will help other Big Ten teams recruit better in California? Absolutely. 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 There are teams already recruiting in California, okay, they're in the Big Ten that are going into Cali, that are making things happen. But this is going to allow maybe not the Ohio States. I don't know if Michigan's going into California a ton right now. But there's other big teams. There was always that Calabrasca connection. The Martinez quarterbacks, Taylor and Adrian, I both believe came out of the state of California. I know Taylor came out of Corona, California. But this is going to allow other teams that maybe haven't been into California. They're going to have that Big Ten recruiting connection. I think that was one of the advantages to having the LA schools kind of come aboard in the Big Ten Conference, is having that connection and having that pipeline out to California for recruiting. So it's going to do well. And, of course, having USC and UCLA, they're going to have a boost because they've got that home base. They've got Southern Cal, and now they're going to be playing on a bigger stage, better exposure, all that sort of stuff. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun for everybody involved. Can't wait for just the 2024 season when we see Texas, Oklahoma, SEC, when we see USC, UCLA going to the Big Ten, 12-team playoff, return of the video game. It's going to look a lot different than it has in the past. Erica chiming in with the super chat. Thank you, Erica. You are here just about every single week, and I appreciate that. Always brings some great perspective from the folks down in Iowa City, from Hawkeye land, so to speak. So thank you very much for supporting the channel here right now. A lot of people were very harsh on Brian Ferentz, and we've talked about nepotism. We've talked about all that. We've talked about so much of that here on this channel throughout the past, May now, throughout the past 6-8 months or whatever. We've talked a lot about that, about Brian Ferentz, and maybe reverting back to the power rankings. That's maybe why I'm not maybe the most confident, so to speak, about Iowa. Maybe that's where I'm sitting right now. I love Iowa defensively. The ball Hawkeyes. I love it. Cooper DeJean, the turnover machine. I love every minute of it. Phil Parker, for my money, is the best defensive coach probably in the Big Ten, if not the country. That's how strongly I feel about Phil Parker. But for as strongly as I feel about Phil Parker in that defense, I feel kind of the balance, the seesaw, so to speak, goes in the other way for the Iowa offense. All good conversation here tonight. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of the program. All right, let's head into segment number 2. I am excited about segment number 2. Segment number 2, it is transfer portal season, spring transfer portal season. This is the time where you're shoring up those rosters. This is the time where you really get those key pieces you need to possibly go out and win a Big Ten division championship, or maybe a Big Ten conference championship, or maybe even a college football playoff national championship. Let's kind of go over some of the big transfer portal movements that have taken place this spring and will continue to take place as we go throughout the spring transfer period. I mentioned it earlier in the show. I'm going to talk about it again. Payton Thorne and Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman is a little bit of a bigger loss than Payton Thorne, but Payton Thorne has proven to be a good Big Ten quarterback. Now, the question for Michigan State has to be, you lost a guy that might have been one of the best receivers in the Big Ten Conference. Okay? Keon Coleman, early projections have him going back to down south. He's from Louisiana. Payton Thorne, I'm not sure where he's going to end up at quarterback. I'll talk about Northwestern. They just recently got a quarterback transfer that I'll talk about here later in this segment. Rutgers is really the only other team that really needs a quarterback if they don't want to trot out Gavin Wimsatt, I should say. But right here and the right now, I mean, you look at, they need to try to get weapons for whoever their quarterback is going to be. The guy that I've been looking at in my research, Ajay Walker out of Division II Grand Valley State, 623 yards, 4 touchdowns, but that was in Division II last season. He's the number 17 best available wide receiver right now. Haven't really heard anything else in terms of Michigan State and some of these other top wide receiver transfers. Haven't heard anything else. It's pretty quiet right now on that front with Michigan State, but those are the type of guys that they need to get in East Lansing, Michigan. Those, Payton Thorne and Keon Coleman, might be the two biggest losses of the transfer portal so far this season. I talked about Northwestern. I'm going to talk about it right now. They struggled so much last year because they didn't have a quarterback. Ryan Helinski looked decent in the Nebraska game, but that turned out to be maybe more of a Nebraska thing than anything else. You look at all this stuff right now, and you look at Sullivan as well, Brandon Sullivan, there it is, the name there. The quarterback position was rough for Northwestern last season. The whole season was rough. The whole team seemed to be rough. But they went out and got a transfer in Ben Bryant, the quarterback at Cincinnati last year. He was at Cincinnati, transferred to Eastern Michigan, transferred back, grad transfer to Cincinnati. I guess he's got one more year of eligibility left somehow, some way. At Northwestern, so he'll be back at Northwestern. He will be at Northwestern as a starting quarterback. Ben Bryant, the last 2 seasons, 5,853 yards, 35 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, a 64% completion rate. He looks pretty solid. I watch his highlights and I watch him on film from last year at Cincinnati, and it looks pretty solid. I think this is a guy that's going to come in and be QB1 right away when they play Northwestern. Okay, Cam Porter is back there in the backfield. He was kind of the leading running back in 2020 for the Northwestern Wildcats. Northwestern also went out and got a decent wide receiver in Cam Johnson from Arizona State. He was at Vanderbilt in 2020 and 2021. He combined for 872 yards and 7 touchdowns those last 2 seasons. Okay, so Malik Washington was the receiver. He leaves. They need as well help on defense, especially off the edge. This was a team that was towards the bottom of the Big Ten in sacks. They go out and get a guy that beat them last year. Okay, Richard Haggerty from Southern Illinois had 6 sacks at SIU last season. You look at Bryce Gallagher back there. You look at Xander Mueller back there. The top 4 tacklers from this Northwestern defense return in 2023. They need pressure off the edge, and Richie Haggerty could be the guy that could get the job done for them this season. That's what I believe right now. Northwestern is a team. Look, I'm not saying they're going to go out and they're going to be outstanding or whatever. They're going to go 8-4 or whatever. But Northwestern is a team to watch out for. They've done pretty good in the transfer portal thus far with those additions that I've talked about right here and right now. But we'll see if they can continue to maybe get a couple of players here throughout the month of May to watch out for. Let's talk about the Purdue Boilermakers. They lose Milton Wright. He was academically ineligible last season, and it turns out there were rumblings and rumors that maybe they were trying to get him eligible. Once again, just didn't work. He's going to transfer. He's from the Louisville area. Would not be surprised to see him go and play at Louisville, right? Jeff Brom, of course, with the head coach of Purdue. There's that connection right here for Purdue. But here's the thing about Purdue. They went out and got a receiver that I might be falling in love with. Man, you look at a guy, Corey Gamage, the transfer from Marshall. This kid, 6'4", 220 pounds. Long, lanky, can go over the middle, can go over the top and beat defensive backs. 1,643 yards, 8 touchdowns combined the last 2 years at Marshall. This is a guy, when I watch his highlights and I watch him on film, I said, man, this guy fits right in to the passing attack that Purdue is likely going to keep going with Graham Harrell as the offensive coordinator. You combine him with your TJ Sheffields, your Brock Thompsons, your Mershawn Wrights, your Tyrone Tracy's, and the depth at wide receiver looks pretty good. This could be a pretty good Purdue offense, I believe. I'm very excited to see Gamage, and that is a big transfer pickup for the Purdue Boilermakers. Nebraska saw Ajay Allen, one of the running backs, enter the transfer portal as well. Freshman last year, showed some bursts, but injuries kind of kept him off the depth chart, so to speak. When I look at Ajay Allen, here's something I thought of, right? We talk about Illinois, talk about Reggie Love, we talk about Josh McCray, we talk about those guys. Maybe they're not RB1 type of material when we talk about replacing Chase Brown. What about Ajay Allen transferring to Illinois to possibly fill the void at running back? I said this weeks ago, maybe months ago, that Illinois should look for an RB1 in the transfer portal, and maybe Ajay Allen is that guy to fill the void. Nebraska's going to be fine. They got Anthony Grant. They've got Gabe Irvin Jr. They've got Ramir Johnson. They're going to be fine at the running back position. So this doesn't really hurt the Huskers a ton. They needed to get under 85 scholarships yesterday. Here's a big one, right? When we talk about maybe things are coming full circle for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Last year, Charlie Jones, Iowa to Purdue, he does what he does. Becomes an NFL draft pick. Maybe it's Iowa's turn to get that receiver in the spring transfer portal period. Caleb Brown, a 4-star wide receiver at Ohio State, crowded Ohio State wide receiver room. Very, very crowded. And now he was actually visiting Iowa today. He was in Iowa City today visiting. I want to say that they recruited him out of high school. That may or may not be correct. I thought I read that from some pretty good sources. But if they're able to land this kid, very fast type of guy, can really get out in open space. He is wide receiver 1, day 1. That's what I believe about Caleb Brown. Now you look at Seth Anderson. I think he's going to be a good complement. I've been saying this for weeks and months. Seth Anderson out of Charleston Southern, I believe, is a good receiver. I just don't know if he's number 1. You look at Nico Ragaini, you look at Deontay Vines as some other guy. Of course, Brody Brecht is playing baseball now, so he's not in the fold anymore. But I look at those guys right now. If you trot out a wide receiver group of Caleb Brown, Seth Anderson, Nico Ragaini, Deontay Vines, I feel pretty good about that for Iowa. That was the weakness. You lose Keegan Johnson, you lose Arlen Bruce, you lose those types of guys. Now you kind of got to go in and look at these other guys for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Bringing in a Seth Anderson, bringing in a Caleb Brown. I don't know how they would compare. We're going to find out on the field to Keegan Johnson. I guess it's going to compare pretty good when Keegan Johnson didn't really play at all last season. And then Arlen Bruce. So I believe those two combined with what Iowa has coming back, Caleb Brown could be that guy. Maybe things are going full circle. Maybe he could be that guy to put Iowa over the top and get back to Indianapolis. Want to talk about Avante Dickerson. Right now he's in the transfer portal out of Oregon. So he was at Oregon, entered the portal. Wisconsin and Minnesota appear to be the leaders right now for Avante Dickerson, according to what I've been reading. 4-star, top 150 guy out of high school. They could help tremendously. When you look at Minnesota, Tyler Nubin, Justin Wally, you add Avante Dickerson into that. Avante Dickerson listed as a safety, a little bit of a smaller safety, but he's listed at safety. That could really make Minnesota a really, really good secondary as well. In Wisconsin, they need secondary help right now. So that could really benefit them as well. So Avante Dickerson is one of those guys at Minnesota and Wisconsin. Avante has offers from both of those schools, so he could be very much involved there. Let's talk about Indiana. They have hit the transfer portal hard. I believe they have the second or third. They're in the top 5 somewhere in the transfer portal rankings right now. They went out and got Taven Jackson from Tennessee. Of course, I think he's the brother. Is he the brother, or he's related somehow to basketball star Trace Jackson Davis? Then they went out and got 2 really good wide receiver. DeKeith Carter out of Fordham of the FCS. He was one of the best wide receivers in the FCS last season and the year before. Last season, he was 6th in the FCS in receiving yards, over 1,100 yards. 5th in FCS in receiving touchdowns at 13. 3 years in a row, first team All-Patriot League. This is a guy that can come onto the scene right away and make a difference. EJ Williams from Clemson. He was a part of that 2020 team. 306 yards and 2 touchdowns. Very highly recruited. Top 75 player in the country when he came out. Long and athletic when you talk, when Tom Allen is talking about these guys. Now you put Cam Camper in there. Donovan McCulley, the quarterback, changed positions from quarterback to wide receiver. I look at Jalen Lucas. I look at Josh Henderson at wide receiver. Folks, don't sleep on the Hoosiers. Look at the flag. Indiana could beat Michigan State. Indiana could beat Rutgers. I'm not going to say it right now, but maybe Indiana could give Maryland a football game. That is a team to watch out for. Tom Allen has done it before. He could maybe do it again. If Tom Allen can't get it done with this team, then maybe it's time to move on from Tom Allen. Allen is definitely on the hot seat. I'm going to have my Big Ten head coaches on the hot seat video coming up on Friday, so look out for that. But he is definitely on the hot seat. But this is an Indiana team. Maybe their defense needs a little bit more of a boost, But I look at this Indiana offense, and it looks pretty good. They've done a lot to really improve that offense. The transfer portal is heating up. The transfer portal keeps on spinning around and around and around. One more time, and around. These are key situations. These are key times when you got to go out and get some players. All right, let's get back to the comments. Jared Jones, will Rutgers ever be good? Here's the thing. I'll say this. They said this about Nebraska and Scott Frost. They said, how'd they put it? A few people put it this way. Well, if it's not Scott Frost, then who is it? Who's it going to be to get Nebraska back to where they're going to get to? A lot of people might be saying that about Rutgers. If it's not Greg Schiano, then who's it going to be? So, but I do see that with Greg Schiano, that it's hard right now. This is not the days of the Big East in the mid-2000s. You're not playing against UConn and South Florida and Louisville and Cincinnati and those types of schools. This is the Big Ten, and especially the Big Ten East. It's going to get harder. I want to see how Rutgers does in a 16-team Big Ten, where maybe they're not playing Ohio State every year and Michigan, the 3-6-6 scheduling format. Rutgers appears to be recruiting better. Here's the thing about teams like Rutgers and Maryland. Maryland, these are probably the best Maryland teams maybe in their history of their program. Rutgers, these are maybe some of the better Rutgers teams in the history of their program because they're taking advantage of Big Ten recruiting. But it's just on the field when you talk about the competition. Big Ten versus the Big East back in the day, yeah, it's night and day. So it's hard to imagine now with USC and UCLA. Those are two good programs, both better. Some might say much better than Rutgers. In fact, they probably are a lot better than Rutgers. So it's going to be very difficult. But you need good teams. You need teams at the bottom as well. Not every team can be the top, so to speak. Mr. Dave Valinsky, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate your support of the channel. The transfer portal is the death for schools like Northwestern, Duke, and Stanford. Those are very highly viewed academic institutions where maybe academic requirements are a little bit higher right now. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. You've seen how Stanford has dropped off in maybe the transfer portal era, right? You had Jim Harbaugh. When he left to go to the NFL, David Shaw took over. They still did really good. Stanford did really good in that area. But, man, the last few years, Stanford has struggled. Duke is fine. Northwestern has really struggled as well. The transfer portal doesn't work for everybody. In theory, you get schools that over-recruit. Your Georgias, your Ohio States, your Alabamas, where there's just not enough people in the room and they transfer out and maybe they go to schools like this. But for these specific schools, like a Northwestern, it just hasn't panned out for them. Is it Pat Fitzgerald and his priority of the transfer portal, or is it what? Doesn't matter what it is. It just hasn't. You're right. It hasn't panned out for some of these schools. But very much appreciate the support. Very much appreciate the super chat. Very much appreciate the super chat. Let's see more comments here coming in. Very much appreciate. Good show tonight. I was very excited about this. I know realignment television, it's a very popular off-season topic. When I maybe rate myself and things that I'm maybe best at talking about, I maybe wouldn't put realignment at number 1 or number 2. I love it between the lines. Give me X's and O's. Give me off tackles. Give me pulling guards. Give me blitzes off the edge any day of the week. Any day of the week. So I'm excited to talk about players and personnel. Here in this one, get down to the nitty gritty. Said at the beginning of the show, less than 4 months away until the start of the Big Ten season when Nebraska travels to Minnesota. More comments coming in here. Hummus Hero, thanks. Haven't heard from you in a while. Great to have you here. Crazy to think that the 7th or 8th seed at Ohio State could be number 1 elsewhere. Just talked about it with over-recruiting. Ohio State used to be Oklahoma, maybe not so much anymore, but you have those schools at the top where you're going to have a crowded room, and I believe this has been a positive of the transfer portal, where you're not just locked in to a situation and you can better yourself. In theory, I think the transfer portal evens the level of play, even though we really haven't seen it at the elite level in college football, because you still need to recruit at an extremely high level to still be at that elite level. Transfer portal plugs your holes, but to be honest with you, this is and sometimes you can get a really good player out of the transfer portal. Recruiting is still the lifeblood of the sport, but I think it's good for other guys that maybe say, hey, you were promised a spot, things don't turn out, you have the ability to transfer. The thing that gets weird to me is when kids they transfer to a third school, they transfer to a fourth school, but I understand that's kind of the way things are right now. Hummus Hero talking about Indiana. Indiana administratively needs to get serious about football, and I don't think Tom Allen is the problem. I look at their offense, and they have some pretty good pieces. I like the pieces that they have on the offensive side of the football. If Tom Allen can't maybe go 6-6 this season, they may be looking for a new head coach. They just might be looking for a new direction. Tom Allen did it well in 2020. I think back in 2019, they had a good season where he won maybe 8 or 9 games. He's proven that he can do it. We'll see if this year is different. Dallas Schwartz checking in. When Graham Harrell was USC's offensive coordinator, he bragged his offense had 4 times run plays on the playbook. He wasn't kidding. The Harrell offense was offensive to watch. I feel for Boiler fans. So we'll see. We'll see how this ends up going with Graham Harrell as well. Of course, known for his days as quarterback at Texas Tech where they threw it around a lot. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Maccabee in the backfield. They've got a good tandem with Maccabee and Dylan Downing. I think this can be a balanced team. It remains to be seen what happens. Erica Goldberg again. Thank you for the super chat. Why intel about Ajay Henning? There's a name. Iowa was supposedly in a good spot to get him, but I think Northwestern is now favored and now looking at Caleb Brown instead. Immediately when I saw the post come off of Ajay Henning's Twitter, it said, going into the transfer portal, I quoted it and I said, Ajay Henning to Iowa just makes sense. It makes sense. His relationship with Cade McNamara, Iowa needs a receiver, etc. Ajay Henning's good. I'm going to say that Caleb Brown might be a better option for Ohio State. Okay, I'll just say that right off the bat. And you're right, it looks like Northwestern. I did see that that said there was an account that looked verified, looked like it had a lot of a following. I hadn't really heard of it before, but it looks like I did see Ajay Henning and Northwestern linked together. That would be another big pickup for the Wildcats. And it could be maybe Iowa moved off of Ajay Henning and moved towards Caleb Brown because they maybe valued his talent a little bit more and wanted him over Ajay Henning. It's possible that that's where maybe things swayed back and forth. But I'd love to see both of these receivers. In the Big Ten. Both of these receivers in the Big Ten. All good stuff here tonight. All good stuff. Spring football has come and gone in the Big Ten. We are gearing up for the season. These next few months on the channel, it's going to be very interesting because with spring football gone, transfer portal is going to wrap up here probably in the next 2 to 4 weeks, you would probably think. And then we're going to get into the real nitty-gritty before we get to July. And that's when we can really start looking at the season. That's when we're really going to, probably middle of July, I'll start looking at previewing the season. I'll try. Last year I previewed every team. That was a little bit more of an undertaking than I anticipated, but I still might do that again this season as we look towards next season. So very much looking forward to that. Putting it mildly, USC is way better than Rutgers. Both USC and UCLA are going to be a lot better than that. Greg Sheely, thanks for tuning in. I try not to be controversial. I try not to spit hot takes. USC better than Rutgers. I know you're You're joking there. Hot take of the year right there. USC is better than Rutgers. You heard it here first, ladies and gents. Yes. I was kind of putting them both together. Sometimes words are hard, as they say. English is hard. Appreciate you, Greg, for being here tonight. Appreciate everybody for being here tonight on the program on Big Ten TED Live. Yeah, and there are other guys, of course, in the transfer portal, from other schools that maybe certain Big Ten teams are looking at. But I looked at some of the best players at a lot of the positions, and I didn't see a lot of intel on Big Ten teams to really go out and get a lot of these other players. But there are a lot of Big Ten teams that need to go out and need to fill some holes in the transfer portal right now. I'm very excited. If Ajay Henning lands at Northwestern, I'm picking up steam. You can tell I've picked up steam on Indiana. I'm picking up steam a little bit at Northwestern if Ajay Henning lands there as well. I know losing a guy like Peter Skoronski on that offensive line is obviously a huge hit for them. But, man, things are picking up. And the Big Ten is going to be a lot deeper and a lot better this season. Going to be a lot better here in 2023. So, talked about it at the beginning of the show. I'm going to mention it now. Got some free time. House to myself on Saturday. Saturday night, we're going to be doing another live stream here on the channel. 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. You know where it is. Big Ten TED Live here today. We're going to be talking probably about the college football playoff. We just saw the dates, the bowls, all that stuff. We're going to be talking about the college football playoff. The future is now for the college football playoff once we eventually expand to 12 teams in 2024 and beyond. So we're going to be talking about that. And I think we're going to be talking about, unless we get some news that's warranted when we talk on Saturday, I'm going to be talking about Big Ten quarterbacks because I firmly believe Big Ten, this quarterback class, now that we're seeing some more transfers, I talked about Ben Bryant transferring to Northwestern. This Big Ten quarterback class this season could be pretty darn good. It could be as good as it's been in a long time. I'm very excited to see quarterbacks because I believe that the best conference for quarterbacks this year is probably the Pac-12 from top to bottom, right? You have DJU going to Oregon State. You got Caleb Williams, the defending Heisman Trophy winner. We could see maybe Dante Moore at UCLA, but we might see Colin Schlee, the transfer over there. I think Bo Nix, Michael Penix. You go up and down the Pac-12, and it's a who's who of really good college quarterbacks. But I think the Big Ten is right there as well. Question from Hummus Hero. Who do you think improves their respective program more in year number one? Matt Rule or Luke Fickell? Not which team has a better season, but which team improves more from last season. Wisconsin went 6-6 last year. That was considered a down year. Nebraska's been down for a while. Nebraska is more down than Wisconsin. Both of these teams will rise up. I believe the way Nebraska is building their program right now, I believe Nebraska is maybe in a better position to improve over time than Wisconsin. Tanner Mordecai, I know they've brought in other guys at the quarterback position that look pretty good. But right now, I like what Matt Rule is doing, building this team. I see a lot of good recruiting right now from Matt Rule at Nebraska. I see a lot of good program building right there. Luke Fickell, obviously I'm very excited about Luke becoming a Big Ten head coach. I'm pumped that he is in our league. And he's going to be great at Wisconsin. And he's going to turn them into a great team. They've loaded up on transfers this year. And Luke Fickell said this at his introductory press conference. He says, we want to be a team that builds upon recruiting. We don't want to rely on the portal that much, but I know a lot of these first-year head coaches need to get a lot of their guys in, a lot of their guys back out because it's not the head coach that they were recruited from or committed to. But the answer to the question, which team improves more in year number one, I think it will be Nebraska, just because of how far down they were. That's what I believe Matt Rule is going to improve them more. Wisconsin at 6-6 last season. I know they got the doors blown off of them a couple of times, but when Jim Leonard got his feet under them, he appeared to be playing better. I think the improvement in year number one is going to be more under Nebraska than it is Wisconsin, just because of how down Nebraska was and has been. And they're going to receive a lot of heat. They're going to receive a lot of attention, right? Nebraska is, if they start off the season very well, which they could, if they can get the win over Minnesota and Colorado early in the season. Boy, I'm very excited. Start the season, Minnesota and Nebraska is going to be great, but Colorado and Colorado and Nebraska, I should say, that's going to be one of the most anticipated games of that week. Obviously, what Dion is doing it's different. It's different. I'm really turning over this roster. 50-plus players have transferred out of Colorado, but they're bringing in good players as well, especially if Nebraska is able to go into Minnesota and get the win. That's going to be a big-time game in week number 2. So I'd probably say Matt Rule and Nebraska right now. But that's going to be a fun battle to watch. Nebraska and Wisconsin going to be a fun battle to watch as the years go on. Dallas Schwartz cannot wait. Me and you both. USC will enter the Big Ten. Looks like we've got a USC fan in the house. We've been seeing a little bit more of those USC fans. We've been seeing a couple more of them here on these live streams kind of pop up. So you could see these USC fans. Maybe eventually we'll get some UCLA fans kind of popping in here and kind of checking in on the Big Ten, checking in on what's to come in the next year, what they got to be prepared for. Just like I'm going to be kind of checking out USC and UCLA a little bit more this year because got to be up on the Bruins and the Trojans for when they join the conference in 2024. It's going to be a fun year that year in 2024. Appreciate everybody for coming along for the ride here tonight on another Wednesday night edition of Big Ten Ted Live. As I said at the beginning of the show, we are going to be Big Ten Ted Living on Saturday night as well. 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. So join me for that one. Think that'll do it here for tonight's program on Big Ten Ted Live. We've been going here for about an hour and a half. But that'll wrap things up. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody that supported the channel with a super chat. And thank you for watching and liking and subscribing. It means the world to me as we continue to look forward, less than 4 months away, until Nebraska matches up against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So until Saturday night, I'm Big Ten Ted, and we will see you in the next one.